Alright everyone, Lego here is back with a new project. This time it is a Mosaic project. A long time ago I did a Mosaic project and it's time to do another, basically. So here I am doing a bit of framework first. So I have this cover art here from the Book of Dust, and I am now sketching out the rough area of the window that I'm going to be turning into a bit of stained glass, basically. Now, the procedure for doing it is covered fairly decently in a tutorial I made about a year ago, I think, and I'll link it below to anyone curious. But the long and short of it is that I make the framework as I showcased here with the purple square. Then I sprayed a bunch of glass panes, I suppose you could call it, onto that square, and the density and the size of these small pieces of glass determine the resolution of the image I'm trying to make. So I know right off the bat that the wave of the water coming up on the canoe is going to be some of the most tricky stuff to do. So I intentionally made the density of the mesh, I suppose you could call it, way smaller in that area. You can see the grid superimposed here on the background image itself to give me an idea of how much I actually need to pay attention here, and how small the elements are to get something that looks like anything. So having done that, I now do a bunch of different stuff here. I could have probably found a better and easier way to do it, but my first thought was to sort of isolate the different colors here, because my issue is if I start using the bucket tool to paint the different paints here, then I run into the issue of the bucket tool recognizes things based off color, and there are too many colors here to work with. So it can't easily fill up an entire pane with one color. That's not the way it works. So I need to, in a way, I need to pare down the entire image into maybe two or three colors that I can work with. So I ended up doing probably the most resource intensive option of making a multicolor scan of the entire big book image cover. I think it was a 12-point scan, making everything into 12 basic colors. And now I am splitting that up, putting away the things I don't care about, and I'm left here with the elements of the waves. So that was a very complicated way of going about it. I could have just traced it by hand, but there was a lot of loose and organic elements to that wave that the amount of clicking I was going to be doing and the amount of precision necessary and all those like isolated elements would have to be done each and every one by hand, and that didn't really appeal to me. So instead I did this. And having said that and having done that, I then immediately, of course, as you see there, go about actually simplifying it vastly by removing a lot of those small spaces, because as I probably could have told myself if I thought about it for more than a couple of seconds, the actual resolution of the pattern here doesn't allow for that small amount of detail anyway. So I could have just made a really rough trace of the white parts of the ocean, sorry, water. It's technically a river, but anyway, I could have just made a simple rough outline of the wave, and that would have been that. But didn't think of that at the time. Although here we are now with a bunch of different colors, and what I'm doing here is I am essentially making some larger segments of paints. So every single color here is going to be its own segment, and that just eases my process a bit, so I don't have to make decisions regarding every single pane. I just group them into bigger pieces and then I color them accordingly. So I'm already making some rough outlines here for some of the colors I'm going to be using here. I'm not going to be doing a one-to-one with the book cover. I'm sort of doing my own thing a little bit. The red background here is to more or less tell me where the actual skyline is. So the green dots right now, the green panes, they're going to be the ocean in the background. Sorry, not ocean. I keep saying ocean. It's a river. It's a river. And essentially, what I'm doing is I'm trying to make a border between the foreground and the background. So you have the canoe in the middle, in the wave, and then you have the foreground and then the background. So two different colors of water. And then I have a little bit of indistinguished backgrounds. It's not really important what this is, whether they be buildings or rocky outcroppings or trees or wood, and that doesn't really matter that much. I just need it to be there. And at this point in time, I have the most important thing, which is the middle ground. Now, the circles I made here at the start was the proportions I needed for the text. So I knew what text I was going to make, and I needed efficient space to actually do it in. So I've set aside the foreground and the sky to be that text. And we'll see how the resolution goes. I'm not too worried about it because this is clear cut, and they're relatively simple shapes. And at the end of the day, the way I do the Mosaic projects here are a little bit of a cheating thing actually, because I just make up the missing panes necessary to give me the resolution I need. So even though the mesh, if you will, is way rougher than what I need for the actual texture, it's not going to be a problem because the black texture is going to become glass panes later on. So not really worried about the resolution here. The only thing is, as you can see, the top of the text actually sticks up a bit from the workspace I had set up for myself. So I decided to actually add a little bit of a top part, and then retroactively added a bunch of extra panes to the window, so I can get that last part with it. So I chose to do that instead of just shrinking the whole thing down because I really liked the size I'd gotten. So at this point, it was just as much an experiment in can I actually do this after the fact, and turns out yes, I can. If I think about it a little bit, I could actually have done it better. And I think for a potential next Mosaic project, I think I actually have a better idea of how to go about this, because the actual coloring of the text and all the other elements there, that's not really something I can change. If I want this aesthetic, I think I have to do it this way. So that's very tedious. But the the way I generate the path of the mesh itself, and the way I integrate my written text within that mesh, I think I can do it better than this. The approach I've used so far, I think maybe I can do a better job if I actually cut it into the mesh beforehand and then have it from the get-go. Because right now, the issue I'm facing later down the line is all the colored paints I make based off of either the background or the text, they don't have any border. As you can see here, the red outline is just that. It's just red. There's no accompanying borders to match that of the surrounding mesh. And that I'm going to add those later. But the way I've chosen to go about making those, and the way the existing mesh already looks, means there's going to be a disparity. There's going to be some, like, if you look very closely at the finished product, you'll clearly see the differences between the original mesh, which is one cohesive piece, and the bits and pieces of border that essentially exist to make the distinct panes of the actual text. And I mean, I know what I'm looking for. So to me, it's very obvious and it's glaring and it looks horrible, and I don't like it. And so even if no one else is going to catch that, I don't like that approach, and I don't like that is the way it is. I'm sure there's a better way to do it. and I think I'm going to have to find that way if I do another Mosaic project in this style. I think I'm gonna have to improve on my workflow a bit, because this is too ridiculous, and it's just not good enough. If I can do this with the mesh, then I can surely also add in the text from the get go. There has to be a way to do that without resorting to all sorts of magic. But that's for the future. Right now, I am now doing the foreground. I am deciding on a bit of an approach. As I said at the start, this is not going to be a one-to-one with the book cover. There is going to be differences. One of them is that I am finding my own flow, literally here in this case, of water in the foreground. So I'm not going to try and replicate what I see on the book cover, because the book cover is a work of art on its own. It's a lot of, I don't know what the exact style is called, but it's like, it's artwork made of lines, essentially. So I would never be able to replicate that in the rough resolution that I have here. The best I'm doing here is I'm making a lot of streams of water, and in a minute here, when I'm done with it, I'm going to make those like a lot more cohesive. So it actually looks like maybe a united front of water flowing down with some different nuances to give it some depth. But overall, I'm right now just making a lot of streaks of colored paths, and you can see here already I'm trying to see how that might look when you make it blue, essentially. At this point, I already think I know. I think I know already that I'm going to be using a golden hue for the actual text, so I'm not too worried about the text blending too much in with the background or being hard to see, essentially, because I already think that against the blue, then a yellow or gold color is going to be looking pretty good. Not too dissimilar, actually, from my first Mosaic project, which was also a blend of crystal blue and golden text. So in that regard, there's a bit of a continuity, I suppose. But in this case, it can't be helped. I need water in the foreground, and water is blue, so here we are. Even though the actual book cover art is more like a green tint, which is, you know, a little bit present in the actual canoe in the middle there, preserving that heritage. Now you see, I made a copy in the back, in the bottom there. I decided there was too much variety of blue colors, so I toned it down a little bit, made it a little bit more uniform, and I think it altogether looks a bit better here than it did before. And as for the background water, I also decided that it was too flat, so I took it apart. As you can see here, I'm doing with the canoe as well, taking bits and pieces apart and then reassigning certain portions of them to a new color, which is fairly easy to do actually for mesh, because everything is split up by the mesh itself. So I can easily split apart all the objects, filter them out, do whatever I need with them, and then bring them back together and put it back in. So that's actually a surprisingly pain-free way of doing it. That's very nice. And now I pay my attention to the background, the actual sky. In the on the original book cover, there is of course a lot of text up there. There's text in the foreground as well, actually. But both of those things I can just disregard, because I don't do an actual trace here. Again, I'm making up my own idea of what I want the sky to look like, and I had the notion that I wanted to do bigger segments here. So don't instead of the foreground being a lot of streaks of smaller segments, more nuance, I want the background to be a lot more simple, fewer different hues, bigger segments, as I said. And this is basically what you're seeing here. And then in between those, just to break it up a little bit, I added a few streaks of something. I'll leave it up to the viewer or reader to interpret what you think this is, and I'm sure no matter what you think it is, it's probably right. It can be whatever you want. I have my notion of what I believe this is, but really it's up to the reader to decide what that is. That's, I think, kind of some of the beauty of pixel art. There's not enough detail to get everything totally correct, so some of the interpretation is up to you. What do you think this little piece of art is? And I'll leave that as an exercise or up to the reader. Now, the top part, there's nothing too fancy. I just made a blue pattern of some panes of glass, and then that's it. So overall, happy. I'm done. I have most of the things right. The only really annoying part of this project is the segment we have here. Sorry if there's a background noise in the background. I have an open window. I didn't like this part of the project at all because my first Mosaic project had some really cool effects on the actual glass mesh itself. The black mesh you see here with all the individual small pieces here. I had a really cool effect on that where it almost looked like it was wrought iron, or maybe it was like yeah, like some polished iron or something. It had a really nice shine to it, and I couldn't for the life of me replicate it. Even though I know the exact effect and I know everything, I can go back and look at the old project, see how I did, and I have video of it, of everything. I have everything I need to replicate it, and yet I couldn't actually do it. It didn't get the appearance that I got from the other project. So I have no idea what I did different, or what made that pan out the way it did. So I spent a lot of time trying to replicate that, and even try and replicate it in different ways as well. The best programs usually have more than one way of going about doing something, but not in this case. I could not find a combination of effects or other tips and tricks in my sleeve to get that effect, and I just ended up giving up. But not after really putting my PC through its paces, trying all sorts of weird stuff. It didn't pan out. It didn't work. It really, it was too bright. It was too black. It was too flat. It was too, nothing worked. So I spent a lot of time doing nothing, and I'm still trying to do it. I can see, trying out all sorts of combinations of different filters, and the filter editor here, even though it looks fairly scary, it's not that scary actually. It's just there's a lot of things to poke and prod at, and none of them gave the result I needed. So I ended up giving up. Simple black for the border and the mesh, gold for the text, easy peasy. We've done this a lot of times. We've seen this a lot of times. And then for some reason my PC started crashing like 4 or 5 times. It really did not like me manipulating the thickness of that piece of text. So I ended up cheating a little bit instead and just making it as a pure stroke instead. So what I did was I basically just blurred a copy on top, which gives it that little extra piece of glowing appearance, like maybe there's a light source behind it, maybe you're looking at a window and it's sunshine outside, whatever. That was the effect I was going for. It's a bit hard to sell that effect when a lot of the paints are so dark, but nonetheless I really did want to make it pop a little bit just by having that small glowing refracting effect of having a light source behind. So I did that, and at the last minute here I put a background in the back for 2 purposes. One of them is to close all the small gaps in between the mosaic pieces. You don't always do all the mosaic pieces. Sometimes you leave some things out on purpose to just give it a bit more of an organic feel. And in this case, I have some white pieces here and there that shine through onto the canvas in the back. And you probably want to close those off with some background element, because otherwise you have gaps in your text and they will be transparent in the final piece. So closing those off. And now, as I mentioned earlier, I'm doing the borders for the mosaic pieces that didn't come from the mesh. So I'm adding those back in to actually give some borders between neighboring elements. And this is the process that is so clunky that I am probably going to have to find another approach in the future, because this is not great. I know what I'm looking at. I see the flaws, but I don't think someone unfamiliar with the method and don't look too closely will see anything out of the order. But I do, and I don't like it, so I'll fix that in the future by finding another way of doing it. But here we are. This is the fourth Mosaic project I've done by my count, if we count the project I did for the tutorial, which I have again linked below. Otherwise, I don't think I have a lot to say on this. I really liked the style, and I really liked the fact that I replicated the parts of the book cover that I needed and made my own where I didn't need it. It turned out great, I think, and I have huge respect for people who do pixel art based on this. It is really tedious at times to figure out a way to convey a simple, convey complex stuff through simple interfaces. Is probably what I think I'm saying. But anyway, that's it for now. I will leave it here, and I may see you another time. Bye.